Hey guys, my name is Nick. I'm a Microsoft Certified Expert Administrator. Create a lot of content for MSPs. And in today's video, I'm going to give you a little introduction to Azure Information Protection Labeling. This is something that does come part of the Microsoft 365 Business Premium plan and is sold standalone for $2 a user per month. Many MSPs I know are utilizing the service for the email encryption features that come part of it, but not a lot have adopted the unified labeling client for taxonomy and classifying documents within the organization. So before we get into that here, I just wanted to help you understand the threat landscape and why this solution is relevant and how you can help and how you can sell this to your customers. So we have obviously a variety of different methods of which data can be breached. A lot of that does come though from accidental loss, so people attaching documents with sensitive content in them and sending them externally to users outside the organization. There's lots of new IP and third-party applications being onboarded that can lead to data exfiltration as well too. There's also targeted users in the company that could be part of a phishing attack in which they garner certain documents that contain necessary or pertinent financial information about the company or IP or things like that that you wouldn't want getting into their hands. And then lastly, there's a lot of new compliance coming out that does require you to classify documents and information systems within the company that our customers need to be aware of, like GDPR and also CCPA for privacy concerns and things like that. Your HIPAA customers are going to be huge as well too, just because of the amount of data being transferred that contains PII. So when we think about the solutions from Microsoft in the sense of information protection, there's a variety that span across the entire suite. You have Windows Information Protection, which detects certain company information on devices and can protect that from the sense of cut, copy, paste, and save as into unmanaged applications. You have DLP policies you can set up that can detect certain sensitive information like credit card, social security number, PII, stuff like that, to apply certain controls like blocking them from sending it outside the organization or at least encrypting that message when they do send it outside the organization. And then lastly here we have information protection, which does allow you that email encryption, but it also allows you to apply certain taxonomy and labeling to documents across the entire Office suite to apply certain controls. The common taxonomy they give you is pretty straightforward in the sense of the labels that you get for an organization that they recommend, and those include things like confidential and highly confidential, which you can apply controls like encrypting in the sense of sending across the organization or blocking them from sending it outside to outside users. And when I say block, they can still share it, but that outside user that's not part of your organization wouldn't have access rights into that document, and I'll be showing you that here a little later in the demo. So with these solutions here, the biggest thing I like to point out with information protection is it does scan the on-premise file shares as well too. If you do have any, a lot of MSPs I know are still running this hybrid environment, and this actually can be a great prospecting tool for you to run in a customer environment on the file share to detect this certain sensitive information, and if it is containing credit card information or social security numbers or bank account information, things like that, so you can show them in a report the kinds of information that you should be protecting, which then can help you sell the solution. From the pricing standpoint, again, this is included with Microsoft 365 Business Premium, so I consider that to be the best offer, but it does come standalone for $2 a user a month. I'll go ahead and pull this up here. This is just a breakdown. I'll link below the comparison of the plans. The biggest thing between P1 and P2 is P2 gives you the ability to automatically label documents based off of certain sensitive information or keywords that you type in to protect those documents. But P1 is $2 per user per month. And this is where I was saying you could use this potentially just as a prospecting tool. Just buy one license, run the scan on the file share, and then move forward with saying, hey, this is why you need this label taxonomy within the company. There's obviously other benefits to this as well too, like just straight organization and protection within the company, getting users in the mindset to label their documents for more organization, not only at the user level, but at the company level as well too. Additionally, if you're using third-party applications for file storage, like Dropbox, for instance, this protection can extend into those third-party services as well too, not just OneDrive and SharePoint and Teams here. So it's a very powerful experience, and it's evolved over time here. It's gotten a lot better in the sense of how it's used in a customer environment. But I'll just quickly walk through what this actually looks like within the portal. So you have the Azure Information Protection portal here, which is in portal.azure.com. You can go into all services and you can search for Azure Information Protection to get to that blade. And here it'll pull up your labels. So this is technically now the legacy portal, and this is something that they're going to migrate all into the Security and Compliance Center. So if you go there, you'll notice that you have this classification section and sensitivity labels. So they're using this portal now as the new portal for managing all the labels that you do create. So as a general rule, if you've got a new tenant or if you've never played around with labels, start here, because this is where it's moving in the future and this is where you'll want to be. And the legacy portal here you can still use, but just note that policies that you create as part of these labels won't publish into the unified client experience here until you go down and submit those. I'm making a whole nother video on that just to demystify that for you, but just note that if you're working out of this portal still. So what they call the unified client experience just simply means that you create labels here or you create labels in the Security Compliance Center. They're syncing back and forth to keep in line the controls and settings that you're defining for these labels. This right here, beyond PII data, that's custom one that I created here, but beyond that, this is the default taxonomy that you can generate within a new tenant here, and each one of these labels has a certain description that will be expressed to the end user when they're in the portal trying to apply this in the company. But if you've not created a policy, they won't see this at all. So these labels here you can create or change. The only one I always change is the general label. I change it to internal just because it seems more intuitive for the end users to me in this market. And this is the default description. It comes with business data that's not intended for public consumption, but it can be shared with external partners as required. All of these you can edit to define how you want. I suggest that you work with the client to help define what those will actually look like. But when you go to create a label here, you can call it whatever you want. So I could just call it, HR sensitive, and then type in a description, show whatever it is that you want. You can choose to apply encryption. This applies encryption at both rest and in transit to the document. You can decide to apply permissions now, which I'll assign down here. And this is where you get into the scoping of what's all involved. Or you could let users assign permissions when they assign the label. I advise just to keep it here, keep it simplistic. The more options, you guys know this, the more options you give your end users, the messier it will get for you trying to manage all that and admin that. Users' access to the content expires. You could say on a specific date, number of days after the label is applied, something like that. Definitely recommend just slowly rolling this out. Just click on never for now and then always for offline access. You can get a custom, and there might be certain firms that do get into more granular controls here. I like to keep it pretty simplistic to start off though, especially with the taxonomy. When you click on assign permissions, you can choose to scope this to certain users or groups. With the default taxonomy, confidential and highly confidential are saying that you can't send this to outside people and they can't access it. So that may be something that you want to do, but you can scope certain things to certain people. Like maybe you want to have HR documents labeled and classified, and only people in the department of HR and part of those groups can have certain permissions to those documents. So that might be another one you create in here. When you click on choose permissions, they have already pre-made ones here that you can assign, but you can also do custom. So the big thing here is you can get really granular with the amount of controls that you're doing, and even prevent them from copying content inside, prevent them from printing it, anything like that. It's part of the actual taxonomy here. I'm just going to apply this for now. Click on save and then do next. For content marking, you could add watermarks or custom header or footer to messages with this label. And that might be for confidential, for instance. It just may say confidential or internal use only, something like that. That gives them another heads up that this is a protected document. And that's all custom there. Auto labeling, this is again where you need that P2 subscription to be able to do auto labeling and detect certain types of content within that, which could be a keyword or could just be sensitive content that they have pre-made, like credit card information or social security number or bank account information. Most people don't have this subscription though, so I would say that's a very high use case. You might be able to sell a customer on that if this is huge to them, but in most cases I see that you're going to mostly be working with the P1 subscription. After you've created a label here, I'm not going to do that, but it'll publish here, but it won't, no user will be able to see it until you publish it into a policy. So for the policies here, you can come up and you can click on, I'll click on one I've already created here. And you're choosing what labels you want to publish and scoping it to certain users within the organization. So maybe you want to just publish, HR labels to the HR team. You obviously want to make this as intuitive as possible for end users, but also give them, clear messaging and agreement on what these actually mean. You can then scope this again to users, and then here's where you get into additional controls. You can choose to apply a default label to all documents, just as a baseline classification, and you could choose to say that they need a justification to move a label into a lower classification. So this is cool because if you make a label highly confidential, for instance, and somebody tries to change it to public, they need to audit why they are doing that, and you can have a trail of that in case something does get breached, or you have a trigger that says if it was moved down to a lower classification, like, hey, notify me so I can address that. This is something that I don't advise doing right out of the gate. This might be something you want to do later on, but you can require a user to apply a label to their email or documents. So before they send this or before they save a document, they have to choose a label to apply. This may be something that you want to do in more regulated company, but not out of the gate, I would say. You want to ease into this one. Provide users with a linked custom help page. This is a great one if you guys want to create a custom page that explains the taxonomy a little bit more, gives some clear examples to them of how it can be used within the company. And this is something I would, work with the client on to agree upon what that looks like and get the best examples for what they do as a business. After you've done that and you publish this as a policy, that's where the end user can start to see this within their portal. So there's a couple of different considerations here. One of which is that by Office 365 Office Suite here, Pro Plus, as of March of 2019, this is already built in, the sensitivity UI experience where they'll have the labels that you've published as part of a policy of which they are in scope here within the 365 Office Suite. But if they're not part of that Office package, or if their earlier package has been pushed out from that, you may want to install the Unified Labeling Client. And this is just an executable that installs on their computer. And with that experience, they have, oops, I log in here. With that experience, they have this toolbar that's available here where they can see the label taxonomy if they've applied any, and then they can apply this as well too. If they hover over it, they can get the description to show as well too, so they can see, which one should I be picking here, and it gives them a better experience. They also see that within email as well, and so they can classify email messages with these as well too. So highly confidential, you could choose to just pick this and it will automatically encrypt the document within here. So I'll go ahead and attach this file here, DLP test 1. I've got an external email address I'm sending this to, and just to show you guys, I've got the document open here. It doesn't contain sensitive information, but I have labeled it as highly confidential. And with highly confidential, my label says, yeah, we are encrypting this, and only people who have permissions is people within my organization, so part of my domain. I'll go ahead and send this off here. And it's just giving me a notification because it's already open. And then if I was that Gmail user, let me just pull that up here. I've got the email, so it does send still. This is where DLP policies are more powerful. It does contain that sensitive information, but Gmail's telling it's, hey, this is encrypted, I can't scan it. But then if you try to download it here, it does download, you open it up, but it's looking at the information rights management here, and then it's going to have you sign in. So if you put in an email address here that isn't your organization's, it's going to block your access to that document. So I can go ahead, and move forward because that's just, the gate that you have there within the actual document itself. So that's really, like the power of the solution itself and giving the users the ability to do so. The last thing I want to talk about here is just the reporting. I'm going to do a further deep dive on each aspect of what I consider the life cycle of AIP, discovery, protection, and monitoring. But in here, you can map this to log analytics, and you can start to see the different repositories of which data is stored and the labels that are being applied within the company. You can additionally then see activity going on within the account and see the trends that are going on as well within the environment. And you can get activity logs to say, hey, this is an item that was discovered. These were access denied because they're not part of my domain. So it's got a full audit trail of every single document within here. And you could maybe start to create reports on downgrade label, for instance, is a good one, or access denied. So you can see and start to educate users more on trends that come within the company as well too. So that's everything I want to show for you guys in this video. I will be creating those additional videos just to do a deeper dive on how to set this up and the different discovery methods and everything like that. There's a lot involved, but I want to make it digestible. But if you do have any questions or comments on this one, feel free to leave them below. Otherwise, please like or subscribe to the channel if you guys like to see more content around Microsoft 365 and the MSP space. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.